Alright, so hello, my name is Tristan Loja. I'm doing my debate 2 on immigration policies against, not for. So basically, what my immigration policy is, it's going to be against immigration, like me not wanting or coddling any of it. So, for my debate opener, part 1, for immigrants and homelessness. Current immigration policy has caused an increase in homelessness because officials have struggled to respond as people from all over the world have arrived, sometimes by the thousands each week. Many sought shelter with the city and was legal obligation that gives beds to anyone who asks. Last fall, New York City's homeless shelter population hit a record that has steadily grown since then. Mayor Eric Adams has called the humanitarian crisis that will cost the city about $12 billion over the 3 years. In the fall, he declared a state of emergency in the recent weeks. City officials said they have been running out of the room. The mayor has repeatedly asked the federal government that has traveled to Washington for more funds. A surge in new migrants is coddling with the U.S. housing crisis and even putting a mired dent into the shelter problems, costing a state of local government millions. Cities simply don't have enough affordable homes, enough shelters, or even enough money to help everyone who needs it, straining scarce resources and leaving thousands of people out on the street. According to the New Wall Journal, analyst says homelessness in the U.S. had hit a record spike from 2022 to 2023. Now, local officials are also scrambling to house thousands of migrants arriving from the border. Okay, so for debate opener counter argument, part 1 for immigrants and homelessness. As stated in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development document, it says every person in the United States are protected by a Fair Housing Act. A person's immigration status does not affect his or her federal fair housing rights or responsibilities. The Act prohibits the discrimination scale rental of financing and dwells into other housing relegated transactions based on their race, color, nationality, origin, religion, or sex, familiar status, or disability. Such a discrimination is illegal regardless of the victim's immigration status, so immigrants that are in the United States have access of housing under by the law. But the lives of immigrants and refugees upon arriving in the United States can be riddled with smuggle, especially with those who have few accesses. The language, cultural, and economic barriers many immigrants face by discrimination. More times by not making the task by finding housing impossible. Immigrants feel that they are discriminated. It makes them feel that refugees are uniquely not valuable or bearable to them. Indeed, immigrants are disappointingly represented among people experiencing homelessness, and the National Low-Income Housing Condition advocates guide states. As of March of 2021, immigrant families have assessing housing benefits is no longer at risk. Okay, so for debate part 2, criminal behavior. Current immigration policies are being broken when immigrants are coming into the country illegally. This is a first criminal act caused by not obeying the law. Most continuous debate concerns whether illegal immigrants are more likely to be criminals. The reform from illegal aliens, typically at least 3 times more likely to be incarnated than citizens and legal immigrants. John Lott, president of Crime Prevention Research Center, looked at data on prisoners in Arizona State Prison between the beginning of 1985 and June 2017, and conducted undocumented immigrants that are at least 146% more likely to be convicted of crime than other Arizonans. They are also tend to commit more serious crimes and significantly higher rates for such as crimes as murder, manslaughter, sexual assault, and armed robbery, and are known for being a part of a gang, of course. July 7, 2022, Andrew Mark Miller from Fox News reports The number of crimes committed by illegal immigrants in the United States are surged in the fiscal year of 2021 after declining the years before that. Homicides, assaults, incidents, domestic violence, illegal weapons, possession, and sexual offenses committed by illegal aliens increased dramatically in the fiscal year of 2021 compared to the fiscal year of 2020. Data of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection shows that illegal immigrants committed by 1,178 assault and domestic violence, for crimes in 2021, which represents a more than 400% increase from 2008 to 2020. So, for my debate counter argument for criminal behavior, part 2. A study of co-ed-led Northwestern University economist Elsa Jolon shows that since 1870 it has never been a case that immigrants as a group have been more incarnated in the U.S. born. Over a 150-year period, they found that immigrants' incarnation rate was only slightly lower than the U.S. born men. However, in a more recent time period, immigrants are 60% less likely to be incarnated in the U.S. born citizens than 30% likely in the U.S. born whites. Michael T. Light and co-authors Jigandi He and Jason Robry conducted a new study in 2020 reported in an interview with the University of Wisconsin-Madison News publication. They addressed that the Texas criminal history data for over 1.8 million arrests over the 6-year span. Once they assessed to the data, they were directly calculated for comparisons to crime trends between undocumented immigrants to U.S.-born citizens. They conducted the U.S.-born citizens over twice as likely to be arrested for violent crimes, 2.5 times more likely to be arrested for drug crimes, and over 4 times more likely to be arrested for property crimes compared to undocumented immigrants. Okay, so for debate part 3 for immigration policy and the border. Border states that they're trying to combat the crisis happening daily. The U.S. Border Control reported more than 1.6 million encounters with migrants along the U.S.-Mexico border in the 2021 fiscal year, more than quadruple the number from the more prior fiscal years, which is the new highest annual total record. The number of encounters have fallen just over 400,000 in the fiscal year of 2020 as the coronavirus outbreak slowed migration across much of the world, but encounters at the southwest border rebounded sharply in the fiscal year of 2021, ultimately eclipsed the previous annual high record in the fiscal year of 2000. According to the recently published data from the U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, the federal agency that encompasses the border control, a record number of encounters in the fiscal 2021 involved people from countries over than Mexico. Mexico was the single most common origin country for migrants that encountered at the border in the fiscal of 2021. The Border Patrol reported 608,000 encounters with Mexican nationals last year, according to 37% of total. The remaining of 1 million encounters and 63% involved from people other than Mexico. It is important that these neighboring states that meet the U.S. at the U.S. border, Mexico's support was critical to push any U.S. camp down the southern border, particularly as migrants from nations from as far away as a foot up through Mexico. These are not easily returned back to their home of encounters. Okay, so for debate counter argument part 3, immigration policy and the border. It's very difficult to immigrate legally to the United States in the most portions of American law. All activities are legal except for those the government declares to be illegal. 9 times out of 10, immigrants that enter the U.S. through the border states are seeking to be reunited with family. The family that has long a central role of the U.S. immigration system, more than major immigrant receiving countries. Family migration accounts for over about 40% for the immigration across the organization for economic in development countries. While they share varieties of year to year, roughly 2/3 of legal immigration to the United States is basis off family ties. For immigrants like Venezuela, Cuba, and other areas, who can potentially stay in the U.S. for 2 years if they have a sponsor who applies for the program. At the end of the year, over 327,000 people have been granted parole under the program, which has launched in October 2022. Venezuelans had expanded the nationalities in January of 2023. There are over 30,000 spots per available. Okay, so that was my debate 2, immigration. Now I'm going to list my works cited pages right now. So for my first one is U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. For number 1, for part 2, it is a Pew Research that I found in an article on the Mexico border. It is encounters in 2021 involved people from countries other than Mexico. For part 3, illegal immigration news articles and Federal of American immigration reform. And for 4, I have quite a few because I was picking up different resources. Migrant surge of the U.S. housing crisis war, immigration households from NLIHC, and then factcheck.org from Donald Trump, President of the United States. Crimes committed by illegal immigrants surged in 2021 after declaring the previous years. I'm from Fox News. Fox News again, crimes committed by illegal immigrants surged in 2021 from the previous years. I already picked out the same thing from the same article, just a different area in the article. And then for my other one was immigrants from significantly less likely to commit crimes than a U.S.-born Northwestern now, from the Northwestern University. And undocumented immigrants commit far fewer crimes than U.S. citizens, a study from Crime Report, from an news article. And then the U.S.-Mexico agree on tighter immigration policies at the border, AP News. And then explainer how the U.S. legal immigration system works from migrationpolicy.org. And then my very last one is breaking down the immigration figures from factcheck.org. So yeah, so this was my debates on immigration policies against. Thank you so much for watching. This was Tristan Loja.